Welcome to Urban Grown Stories, the companion podcast for the Urban Grown Tour, hosted by Cultivate KC. You will hear from urban farmers, growers, and advocates across the Kansas City metro area. From the history of local food in Kansas City to the challenges new farmers face and the impactful ways you can get involved in our local food system. This story collection will leave you inspired, informed, and hungry for change.
In this episode, we visit KC Urban Farm Co-op to hear from Darian and Nicolette. This is their story.
My name is Darian Davis, and I am the director of the Kansas City Urban Farm Co-op, located out here in Kansas City, Missouri. We're actually located in Swope Park behind the dog park off of Gregory. You actually go through the dog park, and we're right in the back of there. Founded the Kansas City Urban Farm Co-op in 2016. So originally, it was all based around food sovereignty. To be honest, we were living in what we call the hood, and some people call it food desert. We like to more appropriately call it food apartheid. It was right around Mike Brown. Tensions were high in the air, and we were wondering if they were going to have a curfew, and tanks started rolling down the street, and it was just a lot of tension. And so the question started arising in the community, how can we take care of ourselves? And we said, well, we got to start with a first step, and the first step is we've got to be able to feed ourselves. At that time, I was part of Nile Valley Aquaponics, which was off of 29th and Wabash, and in that area, when we would have people come and help us build, we would talk to kids, and they would tell us, we would ask them questions like where they got their food from. And we'd hear things like the dollar store or the liquor store. At the time, it wasn't a grocery store around there. A lot of people don't have reliable transportation. So we seen that it was a need for food, especially organic food, knowing your farmer and all that stuff. And so my partner, Dre Taylor, put out a Facebook post, and it got a lot of interaction, a lot of shares, a lot of people commenting. So we set up a steering committee and saying, okay, what do we do from here? And we said, well, let's invite the community out and figure out what we want to do about it. So we put the word out, said we're having a meeting about farming, urban farming. And to our surprise, on a Sunday with a week notice, we had over 200 people showed up. And so we knew right then and there was an actual demand for that. During this meeting, we had like sign up sheets to different things that you thought you were good at, or skills you had, or how you can contribute, and even how much money would you donate. And we had commitment of over $10,000 and probably 200 and something people signing papers saying, hey, I'll help. So after that, we ended up getting a grant from the city, the PIAC Fund. And the PIAC Fund was a public infrastructure advisory committee. And basically it's for anything in the city infrastructure wise that could be an asset to the community. So we got some money from there, and that's when the process started of the difficult time trying to find space. It took us 2 years to find the location. We're here. We'd go to a location. It was always a problem, meeting after meeting after meeting. It was like a war almost. And then really when the war got intense is when we finally got the location, and it was time to do the work. So over here, some of the things we did with the money is put up a 10-foot tall deer fencing around here. There's concrete that the fence is in all around here. We put in 4 frost-free hydrants and plumbing and irrigation to all the trees. And that's not including the actual tree planting themselves and grading the land. So it was a lot of work. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And one of our principles of setting up a co-op initially was not only how do we feed ourselves, but how do we keep our money in our community? And so we wanted to have a program to where when we make profit, we share it with our members. And that was our idea with the cooperative. And so when it came time to pay the contractors or to even pick the contractors to do the work, here comes Ward 2. The city was adamant on, no, we're going to be doing our own solicitations. We're going to pick the contractors. But our whole point of this whole thing was we want the money to stay in our community. So we want our people who've been helping us with this journey to get the money. Fault and fault is usually unheard of because that's just not their rules, quote unquote. But we got it done. We had all black and minority and women contractors to do all the work here. So we were proud about that. So fast forward 2 years after that, we had 100 people out here planting 200 trees in one day, a lot of community support. And that was in 2018 when the trees was planted. So 7 years later, we're still standing. We've got a lot of community support. We've given away tens of thousands of pounds of food to the community. We've done dozens and dozens of workshops. We have a lot of events out here and celebrations, vendors, and food trucks and music, and we just have a good time. We're happy to say that we are the largest black-owned orchard in the city of Kansas City, Missouri, and we wanted to be different. We knew that there were farms out there, but nobody's really selling fruit, and so let's do something different. Maybe it has a little bit more novelty to it. And we were thinking at the time, which I'm not sure if this is true, that maybe it'd be less maintenance. That's not necessarily the case, but we were trying to do something. Actually, initially, our whole idea was let's buy up all these vacant lots and have the city donate these lots. And we're going to have, 50, 100 little farms, and we're going to trade with each other. Too much logistics, right? And then we said, well, let's do a fish farm, because that's what we're doing in Nile Valley. We're doing aquaponics. Too much upfront capital needed. And so we had a lot of ideas before here, and it just kind of landed on here saying, hey, let's start simple as possible and see how we can grow from there.
My name is Nicolette Page Davis, and I am the manager here at the Kansas City Urban Farm Co-op and also Sacred Land Steward. So what gave me the encouragement was seeing the fruit, because I came in at a time where it was really, really close to fruit bearing time. And so seeing the fruit was very exciting, and seeing the community's response to having access to local organic fruit was also very exciting. I really like how grassroots the orchard is as well. And it's just the events that we've had and the response to our events too. Having poetry in the orchard is a big one that brings the community out, and it embraces the arts, which I really, really love. Those are the things that made me say, okay. So, we're being seen, and people love it, and we are also being supported. I would like to shout out our partner gardens, like the Kansas City Community Gardens. Our other partner gardens have really helped to spread the word that, hey, we are here. And then, of course, the different vendors and artists that come through for our events help to spread the word too. We have a really good, solid team as well that gets the word out really well. But a lot of it is just to knowing how to promote. So I do the marketing as well. And promotion plays a huge part, being able to plan these things. And so we did, we've had so many, but one of our biggest events is our summer solstice and Power to the People celebration. It's a combination of celebrating the summer solstice and Juneteenth, where we have different artists and vendors and entertainment alike. And that event is always very fun. I mean, everybody's in the grass hanging out and just like really enjoying the vibes. We've had some community harvest days where people are coming out to harvest the cherries, which is awesome because you get the families and the kids coming out. Even our harvest days in the fall, whenever the apples are ready, that's one of my favorite things, is to see the people out here and being able to, it's like heaven. Yes. So far, it has just been people in the community that heard about our harvest days. Also, the Kansas City Community Gardens have had some of their volunteers come over, helps us to thin the fruit or maybe harvest some of the fruit so that they could also give it away. But it really is people in our community, because when we are going to have a harvest, we put that information out there and people show up. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna set my wife up. So I got a call a week ago, and my wife was upset. She said, "I can't believe it. Have you seen this grocery store?" And this was the grocery store right down the street from where we started doing aquaponics, where it wasn't a grocery store. Now it is a grocery store, and we're talking about 31st and Prospect, Fresh. And we go up in there, and the shelves are empty. She's asking me, what's going on? Are they closing? She said, I came in here just to get oil. They don't have oil to cook with. And so that's what we're dealing with in real time. Like, this is happening today. It's a disgrace. And you only see that in certain zip codes, and it's just literally bare shelves. And they're not even talking about their closing. They're just saying, hey, it is what it is. And so it is a special need for a certain demographic to have access to fresh food.
And I agree, there is a special need for a certain demographic to grow their own food. But I mean, for me personally, I would love to see just more people in general growing their own food, because I feel like we need to lean more into having a community and having a village and getting back to that village mentality. And food, in my opinion, growing your own food is one of the key ways to get there. If we could learn how to trade with each other, if we could come up with a system, what if every single block, you're going to grow the onions, you're going to grow the potatoes, and we traded like that. I really believe that we would be able to cut out a lot of the need for like just food poverty, and then strengthen our connections as community and rebuild humanity. I want to see everybody do it, but definitely in predominantly Black neighborhoods, oh my gosh, it is really bad. We have 2 grocery stores that are close to us that remain pretty bare. It's really, really, really sad. The lack of funding, the lack of education, mental illness that plagues the community. And I would love to see a lot of these empty blocks or empty lots, turn into gardens. But even so, we have yards. We can turn our yards into gardens, We like to use the word food apartheid versus food desert, because a desert is natural. It's a natural occurrence here on this earth, but an apartheid is not. And what's happened in these predominantly Black communities through what is called redlining is one of them, and other things. I'm going to let him kind of talk more about that.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of what she was saying. This whole thing is bigger than food. Our motto is the people who feed themselves lead themselves. And when you talk about mental health and when you talk about crime, a lot of this stuff comes from food. When you're looking at a community whose food is low value and overpriced, it can mentally change your brain functioning, and just being in control of your food, and let alone connecting that with economics. When you're able to keep the money in the community longer than 6 hours and get to the point to where we can start building institutions. Because see, that's what matters. Black businesses is fine, but until we can create industry to where we can hire other Black businesses and have a vertical economic system, we won't be able to teach our own kids or build our own hospitals or build our own supermarkets or anything. There was the longest surviving Black supermarket right down the street from us on 39th and Kensington. The longest in the nation surviving, just closed maybe 6 years ago. We don't own anything. We don't control anything. And so we talk a lot about how important ownership and control is when it comes time to really changing the landscape of everything, all the bad things in our communities. But I would just simply say, repeat the same thing. One is God made and one is man made. Simply as that. The reality is we're at war. We're at war, and there's things that are done on purpose and systematically to keep a certain group of people down. It just is what it is. When you do something like a comparison of a grocery store in one zip code to a grocery store in another zip code, or when you do a comparison to one school's funding in one zip code and one school's funding in another zip code. I mean, we can go on and on. These are on purpose, structured, systematic tools of war. Until we get on the offensive and start doing things for ourselves instead of depending on what we call at times the enemy, then how can you let your enemy feed you? How can you let they're poisoning us? It's so expensive and hard to find organic food without chemicals, and then we get into Monsanto and all that, but that'll be a longer interview. But it's war.
So for me, I want them to feel empowered, like empowered by growing food, and understand that this is a way that we can take care of ourselves on a mental, physical, even a spiritual level. There's a lot of life lessons that you'll learn from growing food that you actually can't learn in a book or from another person, but it's just something that you learn from nature. And just knowing how to have a relationship with the land is really important. Those life lessons are the biggest things for me, though. Patience, having patience, consistency, determination.
And I think it's important to pay attention to history. And when you look at history and you look at the amount of land after Reconstruction that Black people in particular owned, and you're looking at it now, we own maybe 2% of that same land. What the youth need to know is that farming isn't just about being outside and being dirty and working hard. We need to show our kids that they can actually look at this as a career, like that you can actually get rich. And that's what kids want to know. They want to know, but are you making money? and if our biggest teacher right now is hip hop, and hip hop is all about money, money, money. And so this is what these kids' languages is. And so we need Black farmers specifically that can look rich and get those kids excited, because other than that, for most of these kids, it's just going to be a hobby, something nice to do. But we need the next generation to look seriously at this as a business.
The other thing too I'll say is the importance of self-sustainability, because as we get older, we're trying to find ways to save money. And if you start young and you start learning how to build, how to plant, these are things that will stay in you forever. And you could grow up and have your own self-sustainable homesteading farm, have a family, and teach your kids how to do it too. And it's so much more valuable. And again, the ability to do these things, it does strengthen us on all levels. Even as a farmer, you got to use your muscles, a lot of the time. That's cool. You're going to be out in the sun, be in the elements. So one of my favorite things is notice all the medicinal plants that are growing around us, the weeds, because they are weeds, but they're medicinal, and this is just like growing on its own here. And that's a really beautiful thing. You can do so much with it. And noticing how different each plant is. Whenever I first started gardening, I had a lot of challenges because I just did not realize the different personalities of all these different plants. I'm so proud of myself now because I'm really starting to figure it out. But just noticing how these things need to be cared for, what it really takes, to grow food too. A lot of people don't realize, like, look, when you get a baby fruit tree, you ain't about to get no fruit, for a few years.
Nothing in particular sticks in my head except peace.
Yeah.
That's one thing about being out here. It's a form of meditation, and especially when we see that in the kids, this generation who's locked into walls and not getting sunlight and addicted to screens, to be outside, to be in the sun, to be in the air, and to be silent and talk to the trees and listen to them. It does something spiritual to you that you just can't put your finger on, but you know what it is when you feel it.
In the springtime, it's one of my favorite times to be out here because of all the different colors, all the different herbs that are growing. You got brilliant, bright purples and yellows and lush green and all of these beautiful, beautiful colors. And it's just really inviting. You could just set a blanket down and lay down and read a book. We've done that out here a lot. We're just sitting and reading and stretch your body and just feel the earth. I really feel like this place is it's like really organic, like everywhere. I mean, I want to stretch right now. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, that looks like a good spot right there because it's just, I love it. Is. Yes. You just put your fingers in it and your hands and it's just a whole world, We always post about our upcoming events and we could always use more volunteers. And our volunteer days are fun too. Okay. We have a lot of fun out here and stuff. And all of our community events are also the whole vibe, like just the whole vibe. It's just so fun. On June 21st, we're going to have our summer solstice celebration and Power to the People celebration. And we're going to have a fall harvest on September 21st. People are going to be able to harvest some of our apples, which is going to be fabulous. Every first and third Sunday is when we usually have our volunteer days, depending on weather. Most of the time we'll still be out here even if it is pouring down rain, but you just got to go to our social media pages because like I said, we will always post whenever we're going to have our volunteer days.
Yeah, I just want to shout out KC Bugs. I want to shout out the Giving Grove. I want to shout out Kansas City Community Gardens. And I want to do a special shout out for Cultivate KC, who recently gave us our most recent small grant to help us get some equipment and a shed. A few years ago, we had an unfortunate incident where we had a trailer full of materials and supplies stolen from our orchard. And one of the things that was stolen was our rod and lawnmower. So we were able to get some funding to replace that. So shout out to all our partners out there. One thing about being a farmer is the community is really supportive of each other. It's all love. It ain't really like a lot of competition. Everybody's just trying to help each other as much as possible. And so we're just happy to be in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want the community to be encouraged to grow food and to just keep growing. Anybody can do it. You just take one seed at a time.
Food for thought. How can you help support your local food system? Start with buying local through CSAs or your local farmers market. Volunteer at your local growing space, cultivate your own food, or voice your support of urban growing to your elected officials. Visit cultivatekc.org/urban-grown-stories for more information. For more on the growing site featured in today's episode, please check the show notes. Thank you for listening to Urban Grown Stories, a podcast brought to you by Cultivate KC in partnership with KC BizCare. Urban Grown Stories is hosted and produced by Jessica Garcia, with interviews recorded and edited by Kara Harpstreet, a Kansas Local Food Fellow with K-State Research and Extension. Production and editing support from Eric Hemphill and Ami Freeberg, with intros provided by Cultivate KC staff. Keep growing, Kansas City.